back to Dinner with the DeRestas. This is one of my favorite times of the year as far as cooking goes. It is the time of year when Hatch green chilies come in season. From the end of July through the middle of August, Hatch green chilies are harvested and shipped all over the country. What makes a Hatch green chili so special? Well, first, it's only grown in the Hatch Valley in New Mexico. Other than that, it is the perfect blend of sweet and heat. It is my favorite chili to work with. But unfortunately, when they're gone for a season, you don't get them till the next year. So we've actually spent about 11 months of the year where Hatch green chilies are not available fresh. Hatch green chilies are harvested when they're green. As they travel and age, they will start to ripen and turn a red color. Apparently, that's a very big topic of debate in New Mexico. Is it better to have a green chili or to have a red chili? I personally like them green, but it's all a matter of taste. We're gonna make a sauce that is just phenomenal. It is so good on enchiladas. It's good on shrimp. It's good cooked into macaroni and cheese. And it is my own recipe. So we're gonna need to roast these because the skin and flesh of a Hatch green chili is actually very tough. So we're gonna need to soften them so we're able to work with them. Let's get started. First, you'll need to gather your ingredients. This recipe calls for 20 Hatch green chilies. That's approximately 4 pounds. 2 large sweet onions, a couple cloves of garlic, 1/3 cup of pepper infused vodka, and 1/3 cup white distilled vinegar. And as always, a little olive oil and some salt and pepper. Before we get started with the roasting process, we're gonna go ahead and chop up our 2 onions, and we're gonna put them on this well-loved baking sheet. And we're gonna stick it in the oven on the low rack with the broiler on. We'll leave it in there approximately 20-25 minutes. At about the 15-minute mark, we'll pop in some cloves of garlic and let those soften up too. So let's chop our onions. Remember, always save our scraps. We're gonna do something with them later. Get a good rough chop on both of our onions. These are my favorite. They're sweet Vidalia onions. They grow in South Georgia, and they're very specific just to that region. Just because an onion is a sweet onion, it can only be called Vidalia if it's grown in South Georgia. We're gonna add our onions to the baking sheet. We're gonna drizzle them with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil so they don't stick, and so, of course, kosher salt will stick to them. This salt will add a little bit of flavor, and it will pull some of the moisture out. We're gonna take our onions, we're gonna pop them in the oven, bottom rack. We're gonna turn our broiler on. And in about 15 minutes, we're gonna check back on them when we add our garlic. It's time to start our roasting. You'll need a glass casserole dish with something like aluminum to cover it, and that'll come into play later. Some people just actually roast these in their oven. There's actually gatherings that happen around the country where they put big fire pits out, and you can buy them at the store, at the farmer's market, and actually roast them there and take them home roasted. I've never been lucky enough to go to one of those, but I have found what I think to be the best way to get these roasted. If you have a gas stove, kind of what I do is I turn all my burners on. Yes, it will get hot. And I actually roast my peppers directly on my range. Using tongs, you can move them around. And you'll see they get a really beautiful, beautiful char. They will snap, crackle, and pop a little bit, and there will be some cleanup involved, definitely at the end. But that charring will add so much flavor, and really, you just can't get them to taste this good if you just do it in the oven. So I keep them going. You keep them moving until all 20 have been roasted. Keep them moving so that they get charred, but they don't get burnt. We don't want incinerated Hatch Chiles. That definitely wouldn't be flavorful. I really wish you could smell this. It smells amazing. It's earthy, it's peppery. It's just such a wonderful smell. And if you see, you can actually add multiple peppers to each burner. Speed up the process just a little bit. Okay, when you finally get the appropriate amount of char that you want, take your peppers and put them in your casserole dish and cover that up. And the reason we're going to do that is it'll keep in some of the steam and they'll finish cooking completely without burning. And it's going to be absolutely amazing. We're at about the 15-minute mark. We still have just a few more peppers roasting, but it's time to add our garlic to the sheet pan that's roasting. So we'll pop 3 cloves in, and we'll check on that again in 10 minutes. Our peppers have finished roasting, and we're just going to let them cool, and then we're going to remove the skins. The easiest way to remove the skin is to take it over the sink. A lot of times it will just start pulling off on its own, but it's always good. There's a little bit of water running over it. You don't want to get all of that charred bits off because it does make a beautiful color contrast in the sauce. So we'll peel those, all 20, and then we'll meet back to finish. We've removed the skins, we've removed the stems, but we're going to leave the seeds into place. The seeds actually give it part of that wonderful, wonderful heat that I just so much love. We're ready to move on to the next step. We're going to talk about something very interesting. I like to use one of my favorite kitchen gadgets to do this. It is a food mill. Growing up, my grandmother had one. She called it a tomato mill, but anything, you can puree tomatoes, peppers, you can make baby food. There's just so many uses, and the plus is this is actually dishwasher safe. So you can just throw all the little bits in the dishwasher and you don't even have to wash it yourself. How does it come? Well, you have the base, and it has legs to sit on top of a pot or a bowl or some vessel to catch the puree. You have different sized grates. There's a very, very, very fine one. There's one that has a little more coarse, and then there's a chopped texture. I typically like this. I like the way it looks. It makes things look definitely homemade. It makes it look like you spent a lot of time. So that's the one we're going to use for this. And you put it together with the actual meal. Well, you may ask, what if I don't have a food meal? What if I don't need any more kitchen gadgets? You don't really need this. I like it. This step could be done in a food processor. It could be done in a blender. Whatever you have, go ahead and try it. But I do suggest getting one of these if you like to make fresh sauces year-round, because it's just such a fantastic tool. We're going to remove our vegetables have been roasting in the oven and allow them to cool a little bit while we start our sauce. We're going to add our peppers a couple or few at a time. Run it through the mill. We've already added the garlic, and now it's time to add our roasted onions to the meal. Now that we have all 20 of our roasted peppers, both of our roasted onions, and our 3 cloves of roasted garlic chopped up from the mill, again, if you don't have a mill, food processor, blender, we're going to add some acid to this sauce. The first thing we're going to add is a 1/3 cup of pepper-infused vodka. What is pepper-infused vodka? It's any inexpensive to mid-range vodka with a handful of black peppercorns and red chili flake dropped into them. You can do it the night before, 2 days before, even a month before. It stays good for a long time, and it adds just an extra depth and heat and boldness, so that there's more of a varied flavor profile. So we're going to add this to our sauce. That was the vodka, and we have a 1/3 cup of white distilled vinegar. Does it need to be white distilled vinegar? Not necessarily. You could use something like apple cider vinegar or champagne vinegar, but any kind of dark red vinegar, like a red wine vinegar, a balsamic vinegar, although the flavor profile is going to be fantastic, it's going to make your sauce a very strange drab color. So we're adding our vinegar. We're going to start to incorporate it and thin out the sauce. And in case you don't remember, we've not actually seasoned this. We salted our onions to draw moisture out when we roasted them, but we've not salted the garlic or the peppers themselves. So we're going to salt to taste. And the reason we're going to salt to taste is things that have heat. Peppers have a heat component called capsaicin. And it actually tricks your tongue into thinking things are saltier than they are. So if you add too much salt, you're going to taste the heat and extra sodium. And this is just such a fantastic sauce that we don't want to ruin it in any way. Oh my goodness. Again, I just can't describe the balance. It hits your tongue with just a little bit of heat at the beginning. Then you get the sweetness followed by the earthiness, and then the heat comes back. It's hot, but not too hot. This is so good. And actually, it's pretty good right now without any salt. I'm going to add just a small dash just to help it from stabilizing it, help it from changing colors. But we're going to get our coarse kosher salt, sprinkle a little bit in, and stir. Again, what are we going to do with this? Well, if you come back another day, we're going to actually make a delicious Hatch green chili chicken enchilada casserole. It is a family favorite. And it's one of those things you can make it ahead and it's better the next day, but it's the best 2 days later. It just, when it sits, all the flavors are just perfect together. Super easy, super fast. Also, this makes a wonderful macaroni and cheese. That's another family favorite. I've used it as a sauce on like a Tex-Mex shrimp and rice dish. It just, like I said, the sweetness holds up to so many different things. You could put it on tofu. You could toss a little bit with some roasted vegetables. But remember, Hatch green chilies only come in once a year, so there are 11 months out of the year where you would not be able to make this fresh. But come back next time and we're going to cook again, and as always, bon appetit.